of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet and merry part, bright the cheeks and warm the heart, but tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Bide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, tonight's show is going to be a little bit different than others. My guest tonight is Debra DeAngelo, and she was with us a couple of weeks ago talking about her book, Pagan Curious. And during that interview, I mentioned that I did an exercise from her book about finding out what my core element was. And I wished that we had more time during the show so everybody could take the quiz and find out what theirs was. But we decided instead, which was a pretty good idea, to dedicate a whole show for the purpose of just that. So we're going to start in a couple of minutes because I'm not sure how long this is going to take, but I think I'll give you some time to get a pen and paper handy in case you don't know. And you're just going to write down your answers and we'll answer as we go. I mean, at the end, sorry. Meanwhile, Deborah and I are going to chat for a bit. So, Deborah, thank you for coming back to do this.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
We're giving people, as we're giving them time to get a pen and paper, can you explain what a core element is, in case somebody doesn't know, and why it's important for us to find out which is our core element?
Well, your core element is which of the 4 elements is your default. Like it feels like you have 2 feet, a left hand and a right hand. If you're right-handed, that's your go-to. You could use your feet, you could use your left hand, but the right hand is most comfortable. But it doesn't mean that all 4 aren't there. It's just the one that you feel most safe, most familiar with. So we have all 4 elements in us, just like in nature we have all 4 elements, but one's our go-to. And it's important to know because it tells a lot about how we make our choices, what pushes us forward, what holds us back, what can be the source of conflict, what can be the most interesting career or hobby choices for us, or even just how we go about doing things. Because it doesn't mean I'm this category or that category, but it tells you something about your style of how you go through life. So what we're really talking about is temperament, which is the way you choose to go about things. Like if you had somebody who becomes a nurse, you might do it from a scientific angle or from a nurturing angle or from a following the rules angle or from a get in there and get hands-on with a person. You'd be doing your nursing job in each of those 4 situations, but in a different way. So it doesn't preclude you from doing anything, but it means that some things will come naturally to you and other things will feel more like using your left hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or your foot. Now maybe people don't know what the 4 elements are. So can you give us a little bit an explanation of maybe the temperament of each one? You don't have to give everything away, but just a little bit.
Sure. So I'm talking about the 4 earthly elements. And if you draw a plus sign and do a circle around that plus sign so that all the ends of the lines touch the circle, you'd have a symbol that's called a solar cross. And each of those points are classically associated with a particular element and a particular direction. So up at 12 o'clock, you'd have Earth, and Earth is all about order and grounding and routine, and it moves slowly. It's stable. It's reliable and solid. Moving clockwise at 3 o'clock, you have air, which is all about the mind, the intellect, learning, reasoning, and planning. And you move south there to the 6 o'clock point, and you have fire. Fire is about courage and strength and leadership, and it's the stuff that movie heroes are made of, that charge into the dangerous situation and rescue the people. Fire is, when they say fire in the belly or someone who's a hothead, that's your fire sparking up. Over at 9 o'clock, you have water, and water is all about the emotions, compassion, creativity. It's gentle, but it's also can be relentless, as like we're learning down in Florida. Water also has its destructive side. Each element can be good, and it can also be destructive in its own way, particularly when it's out of balance or when you yourself are out of balance. In the very center of that cross is spirit, and we're not really going to get into spirit much today because that's a whole different conversation. That's not an earthly element, that's inside of us. Mm-hmm. But the 4 elements are sort of basics to be included in ritual and on an altar, but you can also use them to figure out, what you want to do, where you want to go, and you may also learn to recognize other people who are one particular element as dominant, and now, if I want to interact with this person, it might be better to speak their elemental language than us keep butting heads because I want to do it my way. So miraculous things can be done when you learn to spot the elements in others as well. So there's just all sorts of reasons to know about this.
And are they similar? I mean, because, everybody has a sign, an elemental sign for astrology, like I'm a water sign according to my birthday. So is that kind of the same message for each element?
It's related. So that plus sign with the circle that I mentioned, if you're earth, air, water, fire sign, there's 3 for each element, and those would be gathered there where that element's represented on the circle. And we could even further go in and add in the directions and things like that. But yeah, each of the 3 signs within that element have that temperament and that style in common.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I think we should get started. Now, everybody has your paper and pen in hand, or your pen and quill as may be. Now, there are 20 questions, and Deborah's going to read the questions, and you have an option of 4. It's multiple choice. So you will choose the answer, and she'll read that, of course. And so your answer will be in the form of A, B, C, or D. So listen carefully and write down your answers with the letter that resonates most with the question. And then at the end of the questions, Deborah will explain what each letter represents, and you'll know what sign you are by the amount of letters, would you have the most letters, like the most A's or the B's or whatever. And, that's pretty much cut and dried, isn't it? Did I leave anything out?
No, you got right on target here. Something to think about before answering, though. Answer the questions from your own heart. Like if the question asks, if the statement, actually you're going to hear some statements in these questions. If the statement is, I'm very creative, and in the back of your head, well, everyone tells me I can't draw and I'm not creative, so I'm going to say no. Throw all that away, first of all. Like before we do this, clear that away. Whatever anybody has ever said about you is irrelevant. This is your own internal reality. The other thing is, don't get bogged down with, well, that's not possible. I can't do that because I have a disability or I don't have the money. We're not talking about possibility. We're just talking about interest and would you like it? And does it sound like you? So, right from the heart. I'm going to read them and then If you could note in the chat, if you need me to repeat it, please let Marla know, and I'll repeat that. So let's begin with number 1. When I was in high school or college, I was most drawn to A, student government, business, economics, management, military. B, science, math, engineering, computer science, medicine, journalism. C, PE, agriculture, skilled trades like carpentry or mechanics, or sports. D, art, theater, creative writing, social services, dance.
Okay, we'll give everybody a little bit to write down their answers.
Okay.
And I'm doing it in my head again, too. See if I get the same answers as I did before, huh? Yeah.
Sometimes it's different when you listen to something versus read it. You never know.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Number 2, when making a tough decision, I will do A, what's right. B, what makes sense. C, what works. D, what feels good. Okay. Number 3, I am A, organized, responsible, punctual, loyal. B, innovative, intellectual, curious, educated. C, bold, athletic, energetic, sexy. D, authentic, creative, compassionate, tender. Number 4, it is most painful for me to be A, unappreciated or shamed. B, disrespected or contradicted. C, ridiculed or defeated. D, bullied or criticized. Number 5, when I was a child, I was often called a tattletale, teacher's pet, goody two-shoes. B, know-it-all, brainiac, nerd. C, daredevil, bully, class clown. D, crybaby, airhead, chatterbox. When I get into disagreements with others, it's usually because A, they aren't doing their fair share or aren't following procedure. B, they're not intelligent enough to understand my point. C, they're a jerk. D, they don't understand me. Seven, when I need to recharge, I like A, cleaning and organizing my house, gardening, knitting, sewing. B, reading, listening to music, watching a documentary, visiting a museum. C, going for a hike or motorcycle ride, building things, working on hobbies, running or working out. D, writing in a journal, drawing, painting, getting a massage, meditating. Eight, when frustrated while fixing or assembling something, I'm most likely to A, read the directions again or call a professional. B, figure out my own solution. C, swear and smash it to bits. D, cry, whine, set the damn thing aside and live without it. 9, I would enjoy being a banker, accountant, stockbroker, police chief, professional organizer, Congress member, CEO of a major company, judge, or military general. B, astrophysicist, college professor, investigative journalist, researcher, doctor, lawyer, forensics investigator, coroner, scientist, surgeon. C, pro football player, astronaut, cowboy, mechanic, race car driver, forest ranger, pilot, carpenter, farmer, horse trainer, rock star. D, artist, actor, singer, musician, novelist, poet, graphic designer, interior decorator, social worker, social activist. Ten, what I really value is A, loyalty, honor, justice, service to other people, leadership. B, intelligence, innovation, education, academic achievement, scholarship. C, freedom, excitement, victory, athleticism, fun, bravery. D, empathy, compassion, creativity, love, genuineness. Eleven.
Hang on just one second. Let me give you a break and give them a break for a second because there's a question that came in. So I figure we'll
okay.
Make it a little bit, not keeping going like that. All right. She said, is it best to concentrate on your own particular element, hers being earth, while doing a reading, or should you just allow all elements to be part of the answer?
Allow all the elements, definitely. And you're coming in with this with a blank slate, because what you think you might be, you might discover you're something else. So definitely it should be without any preconception or any thought to what element you think you are.
Yeah, and I'm curious I knew what my astrological element was, Earth, water baby. I wonder who this person's information came about what her element was. Was it rather astrological or what? So let's take a couple
Gosh,
seconds.
there could be so many sources because you could pick up 5 books on this topic and get 5 different explanations.
Yeah. Well, I just wonder where she got hers, because I never gave much attention to the element. Well, I did, but I wear a pentacle. Of course, I'm paying attention to the elements. But, early on, it was, okay, you're a Cancer, you're a moon child, so you are water. But I don't know how much that sticks. And so, it's really interesting when we're going through this and coming up with the answers and stuff. It may be something completely different than, what we think we were. But again, there's a lot of sources.
I'm a Gemini, so I'm an air sign. And I certainly relate to those qualities that go with air. But in my self of selves, down in my own heart, I'm a water. That's my core. That's my temperament that I interact with the world. But I'm also, because I've been studying this temperament issue for literally decades, I can just as easily go, oh, you know what? I'm going to need to be at Earth for this thing that I have to deal with. I'm going to switch into that mode. So I can click into different elements and operate from that space, because as I said, you're not just one, you're all 4. It's just a matter of degrees for each one. Just like the planet. The planet can't exist as just one element. It requires all 4. But there's the one that's the easy one, your right hand, But I don't personally find that your astrological element necessarily corresponds to how you feel about yourself and how you interact with others and how you interact with the world. So I would say keep an open mind, because there's no good or bad element. No one is better than the other. We need all 4. And they're not like, first, second, third, and fourth place elements. There's a reason to celebrate all of them. And the elements that are very weak in us, well, those are interesting areas to explore. Like my fire element's really low. Like I could learn to be brave one baby step at a time. I don't have to jump out of an airplane today, but I could learn to speak up in a meeting. I could start there, So knowing your weak spot is almost as informational as knowing your strong point.
Right. Yeah. All right. So she just got back, and she said she had many different people tell her based on her birth date. So that's the horoscope. That most of us think that's it. But one more quick question before we get back there from me. Suppose when you're a kid and you would take that quiz, would the same thing maybe happen when you were an adult? Or, as life goes on, are you always the same element, or is it because life changes and you might change with it?
I don't think it all changes all that much. Okay. If we had another 2 hours, we could get into how this corresponds to the Myers-Briggs temperament assessment and how each of those 4 core elements, I think there are 16 possibilities that you can be based on other pieces of your temperament, but the core doesn't usually change. I've taken the Myers-Briggs test many, many times, and I flip-flop on introvert and extrovert and whether I like things closed or I like things open-ended. But the core element that corresponds, in this case for me, to water, it never changes. Oh, okay. But I do think it can change over time. It can change over experience. If you had a traumatic childhood and you're really shut down, you'll retreat into whichever of those elements is safest. Right. When you're 40 years beyond that point, you may not need that same level of safety where you're able to kind of stick your head out of that element and say, I need to wander into a couple of the others. Midlife crisis is great for that, for like okay, going to throw everything in the air and try something else. So,
all right.
And I don't dare to say that the astrological way of finding your elements is wrong. It's just a different system.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different. So, this is the thing about the pagan world. You ask 10 pagans a question and you'll get 15 different answers and probably 2 arguments and maybe a fist fight.
There you go.
There's no right or wrong in any of it. There's the thing that you're drawn to the most that works for you.
Yeah.
Like, this is what works for me. So, if the person that asked the question really feels she's that element, that's fine. Mm-hmm. I would just suggest taking the quiz with a completely blank slate, though, because you might get some surprises.
Sure. All right. Well, let's get back. We're down to 11.
11. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 11. I can best help people by A, leading, enforcing rules and procedure, mentoring, teaching. B, enlightening, educating, inspiring innovation, exploring, solving problems. C, coaching, training, protecting, challenging, pushing the limits. D, being compassionate and kind, inspiring, listening, helping. Well, if I were a movie star, I'd like to play an A, real-life hero, historical figure, military leader. B, investigator, doctor, detective, scientist. C, superhero or supervillain, cop, action or war hero. D, romantic lead, savior, femme fatale. 13, I respond to heartbreak by A, becoming physically ill, depressed, blaming myself. B, giving the silent treatment, verbally eviscerating someone, litigating guilt for past transgressions. C, lashing out, drinking too much, getting angry, getting even. D, crying and moaning, complete emotional collapse, and creating drama. "14, when I have sex, I like it to be A, traditional, lights out. B, kinky, any position or experiment. C, erotic, animalistic, and sometimes rough. D, romantic and sensual." 15, a fantasy vacation would be A, a luxury cruise. B, historical or cultural site. C, mountain climbing. D, a tropical island beach.
Okay, we're at 15, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, we're going to take a break, I think, because we have to. So everybody get up and stretch and walk around for a couple of minutes, and we will be back very shortly.
There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages. Missed an episode of Stirring the Cauldron? Then be sure to check out marlabrooks.com and check out the archive. And while you're there, check out Marla's weekly Witches Oracle card reading. Explore the site to find many great resources, such as information on tarot, oracle readings, metaphysical consultations, and links to all of Marla's books. That's marlabrooks.com.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to.
I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom.
It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Hi, we're back, and my guest is Debra DeAngelo, and we're doing a test to find out what your core element was or is. So I'm just saying, if you're joining us late, you can get the whole test and take it on the podcast. It'll be up tomorrow. But we were up to question 15 right now, and let's continue on.
Okay. 15. Nope, we read 15. We're up to 16.
Oh, okay. Let's see, is there a question about how do you do math? Can you count well? No, I know what that my answer would be for that. Yeah.
Okay, 16. I would most like to win A, Presidential Medal of Freedom. B, Nobel Prize in Physics. C, an Olympic medal. D, an Academy Award. 17. My basic core need is A, accumulating wealth and respect, serving my community or country. B, scholarly achievement and acclaim, solving challenging problems. C, being free to do whatever I want, having fun and adventures. D, expressing my true self creatively, showing compassion and kindness. 18. I am energized by helping others and being appreciated. B, making a big breakthrough in my profession. C, winning. D, creating something beautiful or meaningful. 19. My favorite fantasy creatures are A, angel, leprechaun, fairy godmother. B, and Marla, you can correct me if I say this wrong because I realize I've never said the second word out loud. but B, Vulcan, Cthulhu, direwolf.
That one I can't ever say either, the C word.
Yeah, the other C word, Cthulhu.
Yeah.
C, dragon, Wookiee, zombie. D, mermaid, unicorn, fairy. 20. Some of the people I admire most are A, Stacey Abrams, Martin Luther King Jr., John McCain, Malala Yousafzai, Barack Obama, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Oprah Winfrey, John F. Kennedy, Martha Stewart, Nelson Mandela. B, Albert Einstein, John Lennon, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bob Dylan, Nikola Tesla, Barbara Walters, Leonardo da Vinci, Friedrich Nietzsche, J.R.R. Tolkien, Stephen Hawking. C. Prince, Clint Eastwood, Serena Williams, Madonna, Dale Earnhardt, Michael Jordan, Simone Biles, Tom Brady, Eminem, and Superman. D. Maya Angelou, Greta Thunberg, RuPaul, Elton John, Fred Rogers, Walt Disney, Lady Gaga, Frida Kahlo, Billie Eilish. And that brings us to the end of our quiz. And so now all you have to do is add them up. Add up the A's, the B's, the C's, and the D's. And the one with the highest number is your right hand, your default. This is the temperament that you fall most naturally and easily into. It's your comfort zone and the place from where you make decisions and interact with the world. Now, if you have a tie, that happens too. And so it sort of becomes a forced choice. Can you balance the two and swing back and forth? Or on any average situation, are you more likely to solve that problem this way or to feel that way? So, but ties do happen. But you may also have not a clear one standing out, like maybe the answers are evenly spread. And that may mean that you're just more kind of balanced in the middle of that cross that we drew earlier. You're kind of able to tip whichever way you want to go and access all of those elements. Or you may be skewed all the way into just one. There's no right answer. It just the amount of your answer reflects the extent to which you're strong in that element. So, would we like to talk about the descriptions, or do people have questions at this point, or where? Let's just take a little weather check here.
Yeah, and there's a 30-second delay, so they won't hear that. But yeah, if you guys have any questions and you added your numbers up, we'll talk about that, and then we'll give the answer to which element which belongs to which the alphabet. It's good we don't only have 4 instead of everything else. Now I was looking at the chat room and people were talking to me, so I only got like 17 out of 20. So it's okay though. I mean, there's one that's leading and ahead.
Are there any that wants me to repeat?
Yeah, well, everybody listening, if there's something that you didn't get or whatever, we can repeat. We have time to repeat, but otherwise, if we don't hear from you in a few minutes, or a few seconds rather, then Deborah will go ahead and let you know what your core element is. So I think, I remembered some of the questions, and then a couple of the others I kind of thought to myself, what did I answer on that one? Because there was one.
Well, you have my book. You can go back and do it.
Yeah, I can. I really can.
So, in case anyone's wondering, A corresponds to earth. B corresponds to air. C corresponds to fire. And D corresponds to water. So whichever of those you had the most answers in, that's your comfort zone, your core element.
Well, from just my thing, it goes along with the water sign from the horoscope.
The water.
Yeah, it did. So I guess I'm all wet, basically. That's probably what it means. Or wet behind the ears, yeah.
If they match, it's okay.
Yeah, that was funny. All right, so go ahead and tell everybody what they are,
Okay. So the earth element, it's about grounding and protection. The earth person prefers order and predictability to chaos and chance. They like following rules. They like schedules. If they're confused or lost, they're most likely to solve things the way we've always solved them or ask their superior for guidance. They're not risk takers. They like things to be orderly. And if you think about in nature, the patterns of the seasons, they're very orderly. And they have a certain time that they take to do things. You can't rush an earth person. They're going to take the time that they need to take, and they value doing a good job, and they also value being recognized for doing a good job. And these are the people in your life who provide stability and who will know what to do if there's a certain problem. They'll know who to ask, and they'll know where to read if they can't solve it themselves. But they're reliable and protective. And in the earth element, if you think of how one of Earth's element is a cave is a place where you can go internally and be protected. Bears go in there to hibernate, to make it through the winter. But there's something grounding and protecting about that energy. And they're the people that get the gold stars and the blue ribbons because they try hard and it matters to them. And they'll do all their homework. So then we have air. And that's all about the mind and verbal communication. And I think what's interesting about air, the elements also correspond to the suits in the tarot. And air is sword. And, that you think of a sword, the double-edged sword. Well, it's like the tongue. The tongue can cut both ways. Words can help and words can hurt. But the thing about air people, they have quick minds. They're lifelong learners. If everyone's doing something a certain old way, they'll be the ones to innovate and figure their own way out and do it differently. They'll think outside the box. They're bored easily with people that are dull and can't keep up with them, and frustrated when people don't understand them. So the thing about air people, they can also be argumentative. So these are the people that will split hairs and keep going and win any argument because they're never wrong. So the thing about the air people is they make decisions with their head rather than their heart, as opposed to the earth people that will make decisions based upon protocol or a schedule. The air people will figure in their own head how they're going to do it. So then we have C is fire. The fire element is about movement, courage. They're bold. They're fearless. They'll take on any challenge. They're natural with their body, whether that means they're natural gymnasts or whether that means they can make anything with their hands. These are the people that they can construct anything. They can use a hammer and a saw and lay brick. They just have this natural ability to create with their hands. And they're also risk takers. So they're at the polar opposite in that regard to Earth, whereas the Earth people will avoid risk. The fire people seek it out. They'll be the ones to take the skydiving and the mountain climbing. And they're also often the most charming people in the room. They're the life of the party. They have all the charisma. They are unafraid to be in the spotlight and take all the attention. And a lot of rock stars are fire element people. They're just natural performers. And energy, courage, and charisma is how fire rules. Then you have water. And just like earth and fire are at the opposite ends of the spectrum of risk-taking and orderliness, air and water are at opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to head and heart. So the air people, they'll think something through. They'll be cool and logical and solve a problem without getting emotional about it. Whereas the water people, they're all about emotion. They're the classic cliche, my heart's on my sleeve. They have an emotional life. They solve problems with what feels right in their heart. They'll be the first ones to say, but it's not fair, and they're just big-hearted and loving. They'll adopt all the cats because they need me, So your water people they're creative and sometimes a little quirky and flamboyant, but these are just as air thinks outside the box. The water people create outside the box, painting, poetry, music, dance, and they also care deeply about other people's feelings as well as their own. So compassion for people or animals, it just comes naturally. And they can be kind of romantics at heart, too. They're all about the love. So there are your 4 elements as a description. And the way to get in touch with them, you can explore what sort of activities and things correspond to your strongest element. But then if one of those descriptions or one of those are like, ew, I don't ever want to be like that. I don't want to go take karate and get in a physical fight. Think about that. Think about what are the elements of your personality that you've avoided your whole life, because it may be out of fear, it may be out of low self-esteem, it may be out of a belief that I just could never do it. But the things about the elements is when they're blocked, each of them has their own way of getting around the block. Mm-hmm. So when Earth decides to crush a block, you have your earthquake. It can be quite impressive, and it will just roll over something and smother it. The air, when it decides it needs to vanquish something, you get a hurricane, you get tornadoes. Air can be super powerful. Fire is self-explanatory. I live in Northern California, and we're all about the fire here. But when the fire people are out of their self-esteem or they have a problem to solve, they burn it down, burn down the house, nothing but scorched earth. And the water people, even too many tears can flood, and flood can inundate everything and wipe it away. So there's a power with each of the elements when they're overtaxed or cornered or need to solve a problem. So that's another little clue about, how do you solve your problems? Do you just steamroll over it, or do you bury somebody in a big gush of angry words, or do you file for a divorce and take the cat and the dog and the house too, or do you fall apart and eat a box of cookies and a whole pint of Haagen-Dazs? So it's like every element has strengths, it has weaknesses, it has its own preferred coping mechanisms, its own preferred way of expressing anger, its own preferred way of expressing high self-esteem. But the key thing is to remember you're not just one thing. I've just been reading this book recently that I discovered on my bookshelf I didn't even know I had, from 2007. But it was all about locking people into one element. You're this element, you're going to be this kind of a witch. And I thought, that's really foreign to me. But just as I said, I would never say this person is wrong. I would say she has a different way of looking at it than I do. And there's still value in this book. But I prefer to think of it as you're not just one. You're all 4. But one of them comes forth the most. So, how about any more questions, or would you like to go forward, or let's see where we're at here?
I was just looking in the chat room, and somebody said she was fire sign, and I said, well, I'm water, so I guess I can put you out, just like the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz. Yeah. Well, she is a witch, and it's kind of a witch joke between witches, but it is kind of funny. Yeah. So again, it's A was earth, B was air, C was fire, and D was water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, I kind of, the D and the B. D comes first and then the B. And they're very close. And then, the other two, like you said, they're already there. I don't see any more questions in the chat room right now, but, if anybody has any, we've got a couple of minutes to talk about that. But in the meantime, you've got a lot of things coming up or doing. Let's catch up with you. What's going on?
So many things going on. I just saw for the very first time this week the cover to my third book. So that comes out August of next year, and it's called Sacred Massage, The Magic and Ritual of Soothing Touch. I'm also a massage therapist.
Nice.
And this book is about how to provide massage to your friends and loved ones, people in your life that may really benefit from it, but maybe they can't afford regular massage. Maybe it's impossible to take them for a massage. And you can learn to do this, and you can learn to do the entire thing as a healing ritual. So that's happening. And I just started teaching with University Magicus, which is amongst the creators of that group are Patty Negri, who has she's known as the Good Witch on social media. And what we're doing on University Magicus, basically we're following my second book, Pagan Curious, A Beginner's Guide to Nature, Magic, and Spirituality, which is where our quiz came from tonight. But we're roughly following that as a curriculum and in a lot greater detail. And I'm also, you can find me on my website, DebraDeAngelo.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I can't do TikTok. Every time I turn it on, I turn it back off again. I think this is going to give me a seizure. So
yeah,
I haven't gotten there yet, but every so often I go and look at it again. The other thing that's new and happening is beginning in the next issue of Sage Woman magazine, I'm going to be a regular columnist, and the column's called Garden Variety Pagan. That's sort of my little tagline, because I'm sort of an eclectic, solitary, do it my own way, gather up what works kind of person. And I live in a place where being in a coven is just impossible. So I like to say I am the pagan community in my town, me, myself, and I. And I just, over the years, I've developed my own little ways of doing things, and these are the things I present, and the things I've learned are in this Pagan Curious book, particularly for people who they want to know what it's all about, but they don't have any experience, and there's no one to ask. And I discovered paganism way back when we had dial-up modems. There was nobody to
I
ask.
remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember
So
it well.
that's where I'm at right at the moment. And,
okay, so the courses that you're doing for the university, they're online?
Yeah, you can just look up University Magicus, and the Magicus is spelled with a K, like all good pagans, Magicus. And you can sign up to have access to the whole thing, I believe, and you can sign up for just the classes too, as I understand it. I'm brand new there. I am definitely the new kid on that block. So
I hadn't heard of it. Has it been going on a long time? Am I out of the loop?
It's pretty new. It's still pretty new.
Okay.
A few people on there are apparently celebrities, besides Patty. It's sort of a different circle than the same old circle that I'm used to from all the local pagan festivals. So I'm meeting all these new people, and what's really cool about it is they are international. So I had people from out of the country there, and they're really lovely people, and it's like this whole group of people that I didn't even really know existed, and now I'm suddenly a part of it, and it's going well. So
I've got to check it out and see if I know anybody. As now I know you, of course, but I hadn't heard anything about it, so I think that might be something for everybody to look into. And just check it out, because there's always, learning is important in all different phases.
Podcasts like yours too bring paganism to people that might not have access. I mean, it could be that, you're like me and you live in a town with 25 churches and 25 bars and one stoplight, so, or, some people can't get out of the house. Some people are still, dealing with being free of COVID, and so they're still not getting out and about. So podcasts like yours and online things, I think that's one thing the pandemic brought us, is we have new ways to access things we wouldn't normally have had access to. So it's great. You're doing a great service.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's people that from COVID that had to stay home and got really bored started looking into things online and the internet. And so, I mean, it was, if there was anything good about that whole disease, the whole everything, I'm not saying that this is, really good. We're happy that came so everybody can know now what we know. But it is a byproduct that helps a lot of people. So,
yeah, I became a master Zoomer because of the pandemic. I probably wouldn't have bothered with it before, but I can Zoom like a pro now.
Yeah, see, you got to put that badge on you and say, I did it, because sometimes it doesn't often work. But anyway,
the pandemic, you have a big pile of poo, but if you can pluck a few rubies out of it, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And I like that. That really was a good visual in my head, and I like that very much. And ruby's my birthstone. So anyway, I'm not even going there. But anyway, at some point, I'd like to have you back talking about horses.
Oh, yeah.
And so we can maybe do that beginning of the year or something like that. Because
I will talk about horses until you throw yourself out a window to get away from me.
Well, I like horses.
That's my geek squee topic,
Yeah, and tell people about the book that has horses in it.
That was my first book, The Elements of Horse Spirit, the magical bond between humans and horses. And I have been a horsey girl my whole life, and a pagan much later, and started realizing there was a lot of crossover between magical practice and natural horsemanship and interacting with the horse energetically. And then one thing led to another, and it's like there's horse symbolism, there's horse deity, there's horse horses in the tarot, there's horses. Yep. So there's two parts to this book. One is all about the mythical, magical side, but there's also a practical side for someone who's always wanted a horse and has no idea where to start. It tells you, how do you go about that? How do you interact with the horse? What do you need to have? What do you need to do? And then how can you do magical things with your horse? So, see, I'm going to get off on a tangent here. You said the magical horse.
I'll cut you off right now. But anyway, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the book. We'll get you back. And in the meantime, we're going to gallop out of here. And so thank you for the quiz. And everybody, if you missed a couple of things, the podcast is going up tomorrow. So, it's all good.
And you can also find the quiz in my book, Pagan Curious.
Yes, absolutely. Duh, I should have remembered that. All right, everybody, thanks for listening in. And until next time, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
This has been another edition of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Be sure to tune in next week at the same time for another great guest and more fun. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2009.
You have been listening to the Para X Radio Network.